Higher wages aren't enough. Joining us today to speak about that, Amy David, Clinical Associate Professor at Purdue University. Amy, it's great to see you once again. Welcome.
Thanks, Russell.
I think it's no secret that right now the pandemic is just doing a number on the supply chain in every area, certainly in warehousing, but in sourcing, transportation, all over the place. Quite frankly, what can we do about that? Give us your perspective.
Well, I think one of the big challenges right now is companies trying to hire and get the appropriate labor they need to get back on track. We're seeing it all over the place in everything from retail and manufacturing to logistics and warehousing, that there just simply aren't enough employees. And we're seeing wages go up and signing bonuses, but I think that's really not enough to get to the core of what employees want right now. I think that what employees want are things like standard schedules where they're not finding out about their shifts days before they have to work, and so they want more stability, things that allow them to arrange childcare and have a better work-life balance. And workers can be choosy right now, so I think that employers have to look for more than just raising wages by $1 or $2 per hour.
Let's back up for just a moment and kind of set the stage. Pre-pandemic, what was the labor situation like then?
I'm from the Midwest, and there we have been having issues for years with having enough labor for the supply chain and logistics, and that's the case at every level, whether we're talking about dispatchers straight out of high school or we're talking about folks with associate's degrees, bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. There's definitely a shortage of supply chain talent. Now, the pandemic has been great advertising for those of us that work in supply chain and logistics education. Suddenly everybody knows what the supply chain is, but the numbers just aren't there as far as the workforce to meet the needs.
Well then, all right, so now we've taken a situation that was not optimal prior to the pandemic, and what's happened is the situation has exacerbated, those difficulties. What can we do now to begin to rectify that situation? Walk us through that.
I think that employers really need to think about how they are going to attract labor who wouldn't have normally thought about a supply chain career. A little anecdote, I was at a logistics provider not too long ago, and the manager told me that it was a real challenge to get safety harnesses that fit women, that the different shape of women's bodies made that very, very difficult. And so the women would have to wear like a 3XL harness, which then is less safe and not really doing its job. And when you think about that, if we're excluding half the potential workforce, that's a real problem coming out of the pandemic and thinking about a recovery and getting people back into the workforce. So I think that employers really need to think about what barriers might be there for different types of people and how they can signal that their workplace is friendly for a lot of people in different groups.
That suggests that they were not targeting that segment of the population prior to the pandemic. But you're right. Now we need to be looking at everybody as a potential. So clearly there are incentives beyond just the money, beyond just a higher salary, but other incentives to try to attract these folks into this area, which is all important. But maybe it's one that people never heard of before, never thought about before, right?
Yeah, some of the things that I'm hearing, again, those standard schedules, I'm hearing benefits starting on day one, so health insurance and vacation time. Sometimes a little bit of flexibility that maybe instead of a very standard 8 to 4 shift, maybe somebody can go 7 to 3 if they have to pick up their kids from school. So thinking creatively, and some of these things don't cost companies a lot of money to manage. You think about shifting a shift by an hour, that's not even costing the company anything, but it's making something a much more manageable job for the potential workforce.
Okay, so I'm a manufacturer, or I own a transportation company, or I'm a warehouse operator, and I've heard what you've said needs to be done. I'm having none of it. I'm not going to do those things, make those changes. what is the risk that I am facing? What might happen to my company?
I think you're going to have a really hard time attracting and retaining labor. I think workers have more power than they have in a very long time. Unfortunately, we're talking about 1 in 500 Americans have passed away during the pandemic. If you look at the best historical analog we have, it's actually the Black Plague and the fact that workers' wages rose quite a bit right afterwards because portions of the workforce had been wiped out. Obviously, we're not at that kind of extreme in numbers, but there's certainly been a contraction in the labor force. And if you cannot attract and retain employees, then I don't know how you're going to run your operation at all.
There's great uncertainty right now. We don't know where this is going. We're dealing with the Delta variant as you and I are speaking. We don't know if another variant is brewing at this point. So nobody really has got that crystal ball that says when this is going to end, where we're going to be. So really, my next steps, what should they be?
I think on the labor side, I think that it's important to really find out what is important to your workers or your potential workers, and then go out and see if you can achieve some of those things. And if you don't know where to start, I would say to talk with the local staffing firms. I think they have a good idea. They have a pulse on what jobs are attractive to workers and why. So I would go out to your manpower or what have you and see what you can find out and what insights you can get about the local labor market.
Well, Professor, this has been a great drill down, and I think you may have saved somebody some money by telling them what they need to hear. Listen, I know you're busy here at the conference, but you found time to speak with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell.
That's Amy David, Purdue University, speaking with us today about the labor situation in these difficult pandemic times. Thanks for watching.